Okay. Well, cameras are on.
All right.
Should we fire it up?
Fire it up.
All right.
Who's the leader of the show?
I
You're
guess
from Spirit of Health, right?
Yeah. So, quick introductions. Vaughn from Spirit of Health, the owner of Spirit of Health, and been doing that for about 8 years now. And Mike, who works with us, who's been with us for 3 years. And, we promote health and healing and cleansing and getting back to the Garden of Eden in the original way God designed things to work in the human body. And we're here with at Dr. Morse's clinic.
Yeah.
We'll let Dr. Morse and Marcie, if you don't mind, just giving us a couple of minutes on where you came from and how you got started with this.
Well, where we all came from, but you want to go back. We had a whole week of that, didn't we?
Right.
We had a whole week of talking about consciousness and awareness and who we all are and how we are working in creation. There, I'm Dr. Morris, and this is we'll say it's Dr. Marcie.
Hello.
We're totally into tissue regeneration. We're into showing this planet how the lymphatic system in your body works. You know, one of the missing keys, and it's a big, huge missing part of the puzzle of why people suffer, is understanding one's lymphatic system. That is the sewer system in the body. The allopathic community didn't add that one into their theories, and so they're just now discovering parts of it.
Right.
So without understanding how the body gets rid of metabolitic acids in your body, you're lost. You don't understand why there's swelling in the body. You don't understand why lymph nodes swell, why tumors, why people have pimples and boils, why people get neurologically compromised. You can't explain any of these things because you don't understand how the body deals with the acid side of chemistry, which is the corrosive side of chemistry. So detoxification is that art, and with the understanding of the lymphatic system more complete with the kidneys and the skin and understanding how the body eliminates metabolitic waste, then one can understand true detoxification and how you take someone, let's say, with eczema from head to toe and clean it right up.
Right.
Or someone with tumors in the lungs, how do you get them out? You know? So we live in this planet of treatment-based thinking, and you guys are part of the renaissance of understanding you can't treat symptoms. You have to understand the cause of the symptoms and address the cause of the symptoms.
Now, I would be curious just to hear, because you were in the medical field for a while, you were in the emergency room for a few years. So how did you go from that journey into understanding detoxification and acid alkaline?
This journey first. See, I've been a naturopath. I was in a hospital as a naturopath.
Okay.
I have been on this journey about 48 years now. Wow. So my first office was about in 72 or 3. I started seeing people and working with people. I had health food stores first. Okay. I came out of the woods as a hermit. Kind of went into becoming a hermit and a fruitarian because I realized that fruit was a natural food of man. You know, we're primates. We're 97% the same. So we're frugivores. And we're trying to eat foods that the body can't digest well or foods that have an acid ash. A lot of people don't understand the difference between foods because the medical community has told people it doesn't matter what you eat. Diseases are something that you can't control. Right. And that's a theory that has no validity to it. The whole concept of diseases is ridiculous. You know, we live in a chemical world, and you interact with chemistry by just walking down the street. You know, and so that chemistry, you have to understand how it interfaces with your health of your body.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I like to give people the basic example of just creation. There's a natural created order. You know, you can't just touch fire and not expect to get burned. Like, there's just certain laws of creation, and that's the same way within our bodies with this acid-alkaline balance. And, you know, I just love how you teach that. One thing that really struck me at the seminar we just finished, if you could just explain to people, is just kind of the process of how the body's actually protecting itself from acidosis. Oh, yeah. And it goes through this stage of inflammation, cholesterol plaquing, calcification, all these things we see as like problems or diseases of man. Mucus. But you explain that these things are natural processes of the body trying to protect itself from acidosis, really because God's a good designer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And not to understand that would be, I don't know, a failing of the individual, because just look around and you look at a beautiful flower and it's multiple colors. How did that happen? I mean, it's just the beauty of how chemistry arranges itself, but there's a driver behind the arrangement. There's a consciousness behind that, you know. Well, understanding acid and base is key for everyone, and it's simple. And children should be taught this in school because there's only two sides of chemistry. So when you have a problem, you have to ask yourself, what is the nature of each side of chemistry? And did I break a law, like you said? Do you break a natural law? And am I bumping against the wrong side of chemistry? And so just what you said, when you understand the inflammatory process, you begin to realize why man has cholesterol problems, like you said, why you see calcifications, why you see kidney stones, gallstones, why you see everything you see, you begin to understand that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we just want to make it real for the people who are watching it out there, because, you know, there's still, like, we can have this general understanding, and that's great. But there's still a belief that, you know, when you have cancer, there's not much you can do, or you have tumors, there's not much you can do. And what I love about your experience is that you've seen the reality that you cannot deny, the testimonials, the tumors coming out, the breast tumors being released. You know, I mean, just share, I don't know, just a couple of the stories. One that struck me was the girl, I think you mentioned it, with the tumors all over her legs, and she was actually asking to have her legs removed because the pain was so severe. Like, this is the kind of suffering that people and children are going on to, that the medical system has no answers to, but you're seeing people get well.
Oh yeah, yeah, because you understand the lymphatic system. And this is the lymph system. It's simply put that everything has a sewer system to it. You create a factory, you have to bring in all your materials to build whatever your factory builds, but then you have byproducts and waste that are created during manufacturing. Everybody knows that. Same thing when you burn carbon in your car, you have carbon dioxide coming out. Same thing with your diet, with the body. The body's the same thing as your car. You burn carbon fuel, and you have all the acids that come out. All food breaks down into acid waste. Well, if you understand acids are corrosive and create dehydration and agglomulation, meaning everything sticks and gets hard. I think everybody can understand, oh, my neck is stiff and tight, I'm sore. That's your lymphatic system, and that's acidosis.
Right, right. So what are some of the most, just a couple of, if you can think of any, I know there's hundreds, but of like these extreme cases you've had and seen people get better.
We've had people with multiple tumors in multiple places and got rid of all of them. Marcie's just, you know, been with me for quite a while now, and we all here have the same, because we follow the same protocols and we understand how the body works. It isn't magic. We understand chemistry and how to hydrate and get the kidneys to filter and get these tumors out.
Well, just the story of a lady this last week, 8 tumors throughout her body, and just by cleaning up the diet and starting to alkalize the body, and I think it's been a couple of months now, working with some herbs to help getting the kidneys filtering. Remember, a tumor forms because there's been an obstruction somewhere, and the body is not cleaning away the waste that is around that weaker tissue, and so the body protectively forms things around that so that the rest of the body is safe. We are survival beings. Our body's going to do what it needs to do to survive. And just by changing the diet and working with some herbs, 6 of those tumors have already disappeared, and it's only been, I think, 2 months. Wow. 2 months so far.
Amazing.
Oh yeah, I've had a model that had lung and bone cancer, 43 days on grapes and lemons. No more bone and lung cancer left. Tumors, we had a 9-month-old with a tumor in
9 months old.
9 months. Wow. But that shows you that your lymphatic system is set by mama. Because you're hooked into her fluids. Remember, the body's just cells and fluids. That's all your body is. So your body's made of approximately 100 trillion cells. There's some you know, but
give and take.
Give or take. So let's say 100 trillion cells. So you have to feed 100 trillion cells chemistry, right? Food, nutrition, right? But also you have to clean 100 trillion cells. Just like a baby you bring home from the hospital, you don't just feed them. you gotta clean them.
Right.
And so how do you do that? And that's those interstitial spaces. Those are the spaces around every cell in your body, including bone. And that's how your body gets blood, and then the lymph moves it away.
Yeah.
The fluid in those spaces are 20% blood, 80% lymphatic. So it shows you how vital the lymphatic system is. Well, when you have a modality like the allopathic community that does not understand this, they make everything look like it's a disease and they can treat it, then that's what kills so many people.
Yeah.
The allopathic community kills so many people needlessly because they don't understand what you guys understand, the great lymphatic system.
Right. Right.
Well, a lot of people listening may not understand what acids do. And this may be the first time that they're even hearing about the lymphatic system or acids and what they do in the body. And Robert referenced babies, feeding them and cleaning them. But what happens if you do not change a baby? What happens to the bottom? The red, the diaper rash, that is acid breaking down the skin.
Yeah.
And so think about what that's doing inside the body.
Man.
To all the organs and the cells and the
man.
tissues
Yeah.
and different things like that.
This is why there is that inflammatory process. Some people think inflammation is a disease.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's the body's natural immune response.
Right.
To what?
Right. Yeah. Totally. Well, could you give us just an idea, because some people have heard this acid alkaline concept, but what's the basics of the diet, or at least where should a person start, and what does an alkaline diet look like so people can heal and get well?
Well, think about this. When you look at chemistry, the acid side is the corrosive, I'm going to break you down, tear you apart side. We have to have that because we're in an atom rearrangement universe. In other words, it's already created here. And if someone out there wants to have a baby, it requires atoms to build the structures of cells and everything else in the human body. Where do you get those atoms? In a universe that's already built. So things have birth, life, and death to them. So things like trees break down, people die, everything turns over, and we take those atoms and use them to rebuild other structures here. But the acid side of chemistry is responsible for breaking down things, but it's also responsible, it is also the byproducts of metabolism, respiration, the whole processes, even the Krebs cycles, all the cycles of digestion, all release all these acids. Acids have an agglomeration effect. They dehydrate you. The other side of chemistry, the alkaline side or the base side, hydrates you. So when you're running and exercising, you're creating a lot of acids. So then you run to grab something to drink to hydrate you. So acids dehydrate, alkalis hydrate. And this planet is an alkaline dominant chemistry planet, because in an acidic dominant chemistry planet, people couldn't live. Life couldn't live. It's in a corrosive environment. So when you allow your waste in your body from all your cells to build up, it becomes corrosive to the cells. That's why you have all that protection from cholesterol, calcium, histamines, leucins, all these things like that.
So even, if you look at diet, even people who are trying to eat healthy, say before processed foods, I mean, a lot of foods people have always eaten have been on the acidic side. People do dairy and they do grains and they do meat, and then people switch to a healthy diet and they still eat like healthier versions of those foods. And then on top of that, we've created these super acidified foods like soda pop and all these things. And again, you want to talk about, we don't think about things that don't kill us instantly, but this process of acidosis is just constantly happening in our body, and it's getting worse to worse generation.
Well, you have two types of foods, just like you were saying. You either have the acid ash or acid forming foods, or you have the alkaline forming foods. So if you made it simple, most of your fruits, berries, melons, and vegetables are alkaline forming. Your grains, your beans, your meats, your processed dairy products have an acid ash to them. So if you have an acid ash food that you're eating, its in ash is acidic. Well, blood is alkaline. So now all these acids are going into the blood, these proteins, and now your blood has to compensate for that because it will pull it down into the acid side, and death is within about 3 minutes. So your blood can't be acidic. So the body then has to steal the calcium out of the walls of your arteries, and that gives you the varicose veins, spider veins, bruising easy, all the things that people see, aneurysms, herniations, things like that.
Right. So diet-wise, if you're talking about an alkaline diet, obviously people who are more sick or chronic probably got to be more extreme. Some people might be able to be more balanced. But if somebody's in a chronic situation, you know, what is the best thing to start on? You've mentioned people doing grape fast to heal of chronic illnesses, and you know, so what would you say the best fruits are, you know, and diet to start with for somebody who's chronic versus somebody who, you know, just wants to make good changes?
Well, especially those that are coming to me with ALS, Parkinson's, cancer, those kind of things. I try and get them to transition to a fully alkaline diet as soon as I can get them talked into that. Most of them are desperate enough. They've done all these treatment-based things, and this is their last resort.
Right. 20 doctors and thousands of dollars. And, right.
Many have lost their savings, their entire savings for this. And so I try and talk them into going on either one of two that I have found has been the highest, and that is either a grape or a lemon fast.
Okay.
For as long as I can talk them into doing it. If they can give me 10 days, great.
Okay.
If they can't do the 40 days, they can only do the 10, take a break, go back and do another 10.
When do you add in like alkalizing greens, like an alfalfa or a superfood blend or something?
I work with that a lot if somebody is coming to me and they're very, very malabsorbed, underweight, and we have to do some cleaning and then some building.
Right.
And we go kind of back and forth with that, and I mix the greens in a little bit if I'm trying to build. If somebody comes to me and they're so weak that they can't even get off the couch because their adrenals are so low and compromised, then we may mix some green drinks in there to help build that up a little bit.
Right.
But at some point you still have to get to the cleaning phase. Most people don't think about that. You clean your cars, you clean your house, you clean your pools. We've totally forgotten about cleaning the body.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is talking about neurological cases. Let's look at a few. Because we've had, you know, ALS comes here, and we've had cases of ALS where you're in a wheelchair, your limbs are already modeling, you have no voice. And a good example was the lady we had out at this place a few months ago or a year ago. And she was a singer. She couldn't sing anymore. She couldn't talk anymore. She couldn't move anymore.
Wow.
Now, I put her all on fruit. That's it. And she was up and walking and pushing that within about 4 months, I think it was. But you could see her unfolding. Then she started talking. Then she could sing, you know, and she started moving. Now, she wasn't running, but within 6 to 7 months, it was your jaw would drop.
Yeah.
And I've reconnected higher end quadriplegics. I've connected, but on fruit only. And you bring up the greens. The problem, greens would be great for horses and elephants. But when you're talking primatish and you're talking about man and primates' nervous systems, you got to have a higher form of food. And the highest form of food on the planet are fruits and berries. Those are genetically and the most powerful nutritionally. Got a lot of friends that are multiple doctored professors, and we all agree with that the chemistry of the berries in particular, properly grown fruit would be the same way.
Right.
Something that people don't realize when they look at a fruit versus a vegetable is the energy difference, the digestive difference.
Right.
When you're looking at different foods, there's also different species designed to deal with these. So when you talk about greens, when you look at animals that eat greens, they grind the greens because greens are so thick cellulosely. So they grind. We don't grind our food, but the horses. I was raised farming, and so we had horses as well. And so you can watch them grind those greens up, and then you have multiple compartments or stomachs to go through.
Right.
Some as much as 7 stomachs to go through in this process of greens. We only have one, a very simple digest. We only go basically up and down.
Yeah.
So we are suited so perfectly for fruit. We don't have really anything. Naturally, we pick, peel, eat. And then, but energetically, I couldn't get that ALS case to walking with greens.
Right.
Remember I told you that story, how when I introduced vegetables to her,
Yeah.
an advanced MS case, she went back and couldn't move again
Wow.
after she started moving on fruit.
Wow. Yeah. So I know you see a lot of extreme. Did you want to say something?
I was just going to add to this case the ALS case that he was talking about. If you want to see what acids do to the body, I mean, literally, she could not move, locked down. Her toes were curled in under.
Wow.
And with working with parathyroid and loosening and the alkaline diet, they started straightening right out, and she started sitting up again to the point where she could even walk. I mean, there's a process. Everything is about a process. And you're not going to go from boom to boom to boom. You've got to work yourself. So she had to work her toes and be able to stand up before she could, even take those steps.
Right.
And so, to be able to do that, and I think it was 4 to 6 months that she did that.
It wasn't bad. It was shocking how fast she did.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
I've had other
That's amazing.
cases. It took me 11 months for a C3, C4 quad. But in 11 months, I had a totally reconnected head to foot. And this was a head-on car crash, complete spinal cord separation.
Wow. Spinal cord severed.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So it is all plated up, That was 12 years down. But I've also reconnected 30-some years down. But if you understand what acids do, and that if you get on the other side of chemistry, there's only two sides. So if you get on the other side of chemistry, you're in the hydrating, regenerating side. And so to think that God just made your body to go down and there's nothing you can do about it, stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Because medical doctors are trying to treat something they don't even understand. They create a disease concept of this, and then these are diseases. This is not diseases.
Thousands of names of diseases.
Thousands of names. You know what? Cause and effect. You
Yeah.
create everything you're experiencing. Just because you don't know it, it's just unconsciousness.
Right.
I create everything by what I eat. Everything is chemistry.
Yeah. Do you have a question right here?
I'd be curious to know what you think about. I mean, obviously we know fruits and berries are the answer, but in today's world we don't have access to the fruits that we used to,
Right.
and the ripeness and people shipping them in on
Grocery stores.
How do you walk people down that and how to get the best?
I tell you, it's a fight for everybody.
It's hard.
Everybody around the world, and I get calls from everywhere, and everybody's trying to do the best. There's a guy in Alaska that has a greenhouse growing an orange tree.
Wow.
So he's got oranges. Yeah, so you do have some. It's going to come down to greenhouses.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this. There's a guy in the class who's heavily into greenhouse thinking. Somebody sent me pyramid greenhouses years ago. Pyramids take the energy, the solar energies, and potentize them, accelerate them. So what we could grow, and the superiorness of this food, like you said, if fruit isn't ripe on a tree, it isn't good. And so you're telling people to eat fruit, but they can't hardly get good fruit. The difference between buying an unripe peach in the store and letting it sit in your window and get ripe, there's no such thing. No fruit ripens after you pick it except one, and that's the banana.
Right.
It's the only one that ripens nutritively.
Wow.
Everything else starts fermenting. So you get a peach that's fermenting, it's like soft on about the first half inch or so, and then hard. But when it's ripened off a tree, your toes curl, you get a smile on your ear, and you go, my God.
Glory.
I never got that kind of smile with kale.
That's funny.
Some people do.
Yeah,
Some people love it. Yeah.
people do.
So I just want to ask for the general population, because we work with a lot of families. We got moms, families, they're busy, they have 3 kids. They're just trying to get away from goldfish crackers and Teddy Grahams and dairy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So they want to transition off of the standard American. They don't have MS and ALS.
Right.
You see a lot of extreme cases. And so I just want to know, like, what's a good transition just for the average family who just wants to be healthier? They're not going to become fruitarians tomorrow, or do they necessarily need to?
Exactly. Well, put it this way. When you're looking at the natural food designed for man, it's the fruit and the berries and melons as well. They're the chemical comparison to your blood. They're the best. Outside of that, then, if you want to step down to the veggies, then you can step down to a salad a day or something like that. But you always should have fruit in your breakfast. Breakfast is always fruit. Why? You're breaking the fast from the night before, and you always break fast on fruit juice or fruits.
Right.
So vital to do all fruit in the morning. When you're talking about children, if your children has ADD or anything like this, you want to be all fruit as much as you can. It'll work that ADD right out of them, because fruit is the top detoxifier. Try this as an experiment.
Yeah.
Try a 10-day carrot juice fast, right? Then try a 10-day green juice fast, okay? Then try a 10-day grape fast. and then try a 10-day lemon juice fast. And you just look at yourself and tell me which one kicked your butt the most.
I'm crazy enough to try that.
Oh, you should. because you want to feel what I felt in my journey, because again, I've been almost 50 years in this field, and when I got into it, it was Jensen. These were all friends of mine. Carrot juice.
Yeah.
Well, I wondered why we didn't get to the places I'm getting people.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Fruit is more designed for the Homo sapien. And then when you check it out and you look, absolutely, we're frugivores. Yeah. Whether you get that or not, but the children, you want your children to accelerate in school. And you want to have healthy children so the government doesn't take them from you if they notice a tumor or something.
Stay away from
You want to get
hospitals.
them on fruit now. And the other thing Marcie was talking about is kidney filtration.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Seriously, you go to the doctor and they want your urine to be clear, but your kidneys are filters.
Waste.
I don't know of any filter that's been changed that if it's clean, it's a good thing. It's to keep.
Right. Hey, good analogy. I like it.
Yeah, I like that one.
I love it.
So you have to see sediment. You have to see little particles in the urine and mucus strands and things like that, because that's telling you your body is actually cleaning. When your cells go to the bathroom and get rid of metabolic waste, where is that going? And if it's not coming out, where are you storing it? What's it backing up to? What's it clogging? What's it, you know, if I run something through a garbage disposal and it's not going to go out the pipes and flow out the pipes, that's going to soon back up and back up and back up until I can't even use that anymore.
Yes. And children are being born this way. They're born with their whole systems already backed up, and they're colicky, and they can't feed and they can't breastfeed, and the mom doesn't know if it's their milk or if it's the baby, and then they have eczema and the rashes and the thrush and all that, and they're going to the doctors.
99.8 degree temperatures, and moms are rushing their babies to the doctors before.
Don't stop a fever, right?
Yeah, you don't stop a fever. Yeah, babies can push 104, 105 easy.
They love those.
I mean,
you got baby,
burns
they love
off
104, 105.
Yeah, it burns off those viruses and those bacteria. But another thing, why are we so sick with viruses and bacteria? It's because we have created an environment within the body that is not eliminating it. If we are balanced the way that we are supposed to be, and we do not have the obstructions that are supposed to be there, you wouldn't have the problem that we have today with viruses and bacteria and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're experimenting with our own family, of course, and but we have winter, we have different seasons. It's hard to want to just drink fruit juice all winter long or whatever. But I'll never forget last summer. Our girls, who are only 3 and 5, so in there they were 2 and 4, and we pretty much did fruit during the day. Now, you look around our country and people think we're crazy or abusing our children, or you know what I'm saying, because they think food is the answer to like people getting healthy or well, and it's the opposite. It's like restricting food and eating energetic food, like you said. But man, it was summertime. We would start the morning with berries. They would play hot sun all day, sweating. If they were hungry, we'd give them some more fruit. Now, we might have an evening meal that was some steamed vegetables or some soup or a little fish or whatever. But I just remember they thrived last summer and just all day doing fruit and running around and being active. And people think that's crazy.
I know, but think about this. Creation deals with opposites. So when you look at wintertime in chemistry is alkaline. Well, so is fruits and berries and melons and vegetables. So when your atmosphere environment is alkaline, your food is generally acidic.
Right.
And when you look at the tropics, where man came from, man didn't come from caves. He came from the tropics. He's an islander. So when man came out of that, he was an alkaline eater because the tropics are acidic. Right. So he moved into northern climates, which are more alkaline in the weather, but the soils and everything tend to be more acidic in that way. You said something I wanted to comment on, though, and these are mothers and breastfeeding and milks. Mothers, if you're eating an acid ash diet, your milk will become acidic. That's the first thing to give your baby mucus and tumors. You cannot give your baby, get a colicky, mucusy, throw up. You cannot have acid milks. And if your milk is acidic, get them off. because you'll fill your baby full of mucus and tumors and things like this in today's world of kidneys and things like this, because remember, your baby is a genetically weak baby.
Right.
Cells are genetic. Fluids are not genetic. The fluids comes from the mother, but the cells are.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to give your babies fruits at 4 and 5 months old. We've got children running around here everywhere eating fruit at 4 and 5 months old, and you want to see how smart they are? I mean, look at out there at our group out there around the world. They send stuff to us, and like their children are talking at 6 years old. I've got a great grandson that's talking, and they keep moving him up because he can't converse with any of the kids. He talks in full sentences, and he's only 4 or 5. I can't remember.
So I have to ask a question that I know my wife wants to know, and I'll probably get this 1,000 more times. Women want to know, who are breastfeeding, that if I go all fruit or mostly fruit, am I going to lose my breast milk supply?
Shouldn't.
Okay.
Shouldn't. Now, it's been demonstrated, we see it all the time, that when you start detoxifying, a woman will lose her period for a short period of time.
I've seen that.
I've never seen them lose the milks, to be honest with you.
Okay.
What it'll do, it'll make energize the milk and pull it more into the proper percentage mother milk is. Because if you look at mother's milk, the biggest content of mother's milk is carbohydrates.
Right.
The second half of that then is the lipids. But when you get to the protein content of mother's milk, for those that think protein is everything, is only 1%. So look at mother's milk is about 7.58% carbohydrates, about 3.5 of lipids, and less than 1% protein.
Right.
And that's vital to understand that you see that in most animals. When you get up into cows and horses and things that put on hundreds of pounds, the protein is a little higher, but it is not astronomical. The only milk on this planet that you see a whole different percentage ratios is the cats. The actual
carnivores.
Only, the true carnivores.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Everything else is probably omnivores, frugivores, or the cows and horses eat.
So they shouldn't lose their breast milk supply. And then the other huge question that women always ask is, if I detoxify while I'm pregnant or nursing, am I going to release toxins and pass those to my baby?
Well, first of all, the last time that I would detoxify is while I'm pregnant.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you can't change your diet. That doesn't mean you can't eat healthier and alkalize the diet so that you're giving the best to that child and that kind of thing. But to do a true detoxification while a woman is pregnant, I would be cautious on that. If you've got to clean some things up, do a lighter version of that.
So to clarify, would you say to do the diet change, but not necessarily fasting or not necessarily all the herbs that actually stir everything up?
There are certain, when you go to clean, any woman that's going to watch this is going to understand, when I clean my house and dust, I stir up all kinds of dust motes. You know, you just stir that up. It's like people saying, well, the fruit's too much sugar and it's going to, you know, feed my candida. That's not what's happening. It is loosening things to try and move it out.
Right. Okay.
And so when a woman is pregnant like this, I would definitely change the diet.
Right.
You want to start getting healthy. You want to pass on as much as you can to that child health-wise. Going for a hard detox is not the time to do it, though, when you're pregnant.
Could you be a little bit more liberal maybe when they're nursing? Is there a little bit more flex way there when they're nursing?
You know, what you think about this? You have two systems in your body that deal with the structure function of a cell. Blood and lymph. Right? Those are the only two fluid-based systems outside of water, which is the universal solvent that comes in for edemic or acidic changes. You have the two fluids. They're separate. So the lymph is designed not to dump the toxins back in the blood. So you have to understand that. So by detoxifying, you're not going to dump your toxins into the mother's milk. You're going to help clean the mother's milk. What we're more referring to is that we are living where the human cell has degraded so bad because of these acid ash diets that the human being was considered to become extinct on the planet in about 2025 to 2030. But with the people in their awareness of the raw and regeneration, now these babies are getting regenerated, but these genetic weaknesses are at all-time levels of low. When you have cancer cells, and all a cancer cell is a highly mutated, damaged cell. When you see that in an infant, that means that cell came through that doorway already in its consciousness highly compromised. The concern I personally have is the abortive factor, because in nature the weak are terminated. The strong survive. So if you're a mother bird and you have a nest of babies and one of those babies are sickly, out it goes. And there's no remorse, because nature can't procreate its weaknesses. Man has this emotional ridiculousness that thinks that you have to. In doing that, you create a very inferior race, and now we're struggling with our babies with all types of mutations. Look at the girl born without a face almost, and the 30-some surgeries this little girl went through. This is a soul that could have had a different body and it had a better life. So we have a lot of moral and ethical issues to understand differently, because we've been held down by religious thought. And as we grow spiritually, we understand life a little more evolved and a little more open to how that all works. And who is the living presence in that physical body, you know. But the concern is these babies being inferiorly weak or mutated in the body, the abortive, in other words, the body getting rid of that fetus in a detoxification stance. Because when you're in there, the body, in detoxification, the body gets rid of its weaknesses.
And the encouragement, I think, is to people is that, you know, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. God is a good designer. We are being born more and more genetically weak, but God designed this body as a self-healing, self-perpetuating healing mechanism, and we can reverse this, we can change this. And anybody out there who has any issues, or your child's having issues, or you're diagnosed with some XYZ disease, which is all just made up by man, it's an imbalance that you can heal because of how amazing our God is and our Creator is.
Yeah.
Once you learn the laws, there's nothing you can't cure.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a major message. Most people out here that may be hearing this for the first time has never heard that you can regenerate the body.
Right.
They get
they're
like
told
me.
the opposite at the medical
Exactly.
at the hospital.
Exactly. There's no cure. You'll have this for the rest of your life. And every day we get rid of 50 to 70 billion cells. And those turn over. You can turn them over healthier and healthier if you are supplying the body with the tools and the nutrition that's needed.
Absolutely.
Rather than changing that and going down the other way, which is what we've been doing for so many years.
Amen.
Well, there's a reason why chemistry and physics are our two main health sciences. And that's what we go by, chemistry and physics. And so when you have the medical community comes down on us and say, we practice pseudoscience, I would like to sit and offer them a little experiment. You know, who talks about pseudoscience? Most of us are biochemists or chemists or in some range, physicists or in some way scientists, because we want to know how things are made. It is vital that you know the chemistry of the food you're eating, the chemistry of your body, your pHs in all your chambers, and why things happen at different levels. And if you don't understand that, then, and that's the problem with medical, they do not understand that, or the chemistry of the foods and the interaction thereof. So when you sit and say, it doesn't matter what you eat, that's not any relationship to diseases, they're correct. They created this illusionary concept of diseases, and in their world, diet has nothing to do with it. But in the real world, diet is what's killing man. Your lifestyle is everything, on top of your genetic weaknesses or strengths.
Well, the body takes the nutrition or what you eat, breaks it down, and utilizes it. So basically, if you think about that, everything you put in your mouth is building materials for tomorrow's cell.
Or
are you a Twinkie?
A Twizzler?
Good Twinkie? What are you talking about?
Oh, man.
No, but seriously, are you using good materials to build your house, your temple?
Right.
Or are you using compromised, you know, wood to do that?
A good example would
Dry
be
rot.
meat. Good example would be meat. Meat is a second-hand protein. In other words, it came out of amino acid blends. When you look at all the animals with the muscles, which is your frugivores and your herbivores, those guys are the biggest muscles of all the animals. I mean, if you look at bears, they're muscular, but you got these, you know, these muscles were born out of amino acids. So Discovery Channel was going to do this show or this series on the great carnivore. And so the first animal up on this series was the grizzly bear. The fallacy of that, and I love Discovery Channel, but the fallacy of it, the grizzly bear is not a carnivore. The grizzly bear is an omnivore. And by the time that show was over, the grizzly bear's diet was 65% sage-grass, 13% fruits, berries, and nuts and things, and only 7% meat. And the older bears didn't even get the proteins because too acidic. They took the fat to store for energy when you know that the body breaks down fat for sugar. So the bears took the skin off where the little bears were eating the meat. See, so when you really look at life, you start to understand that proteins has been an illusionary concept out there. It's a propaganda. And all these bodybuilders, and which we work with, Mr. Olympia, we work with bodybuilders, and look what they come of us with: arthritis, pain. They lose their kidneys, their joints, because they're eating acid ash foods to build up. Can't do that. Animals with big muscles do not eat proteins to build up. Look at a horse. You ever seen a wild horse, how big a wild horse is? You don't mess with those babies.
Muscles.
Muscles like crazy. How did they get them? Prairie grass. What the heck? How did they? Where did they get their
protein? How does that happen?
Exactly.
Transmutation, sunshine.
No complete protein for this animal.
Right. Exactly.
Well, the animals that the human race tend to gravitate towards, which are the cows and that kind of thing, beef. Where are they getting their? They're eating the grass, which is, you know.
So then we eat their meat, then we have to break this all the way back down to amino acids before our body can use it again. So now you invoke hydrochloric acid, and you either have that or you have a little of that. Then you have to bring 2 pH stomach chai all the way up to about 7.5 we were talking about in the class. And hope you have good bicarbonate in the bile duct to get that up there, because you can't initiate trypsin or chymotrypsin in any of the lower pHs. So everything is chemically driven. And man just doesn't realize the nature of the chemistry of the foods and what foods we're designed to eat. Every species is designed differently.
And that we have to take responsibility and we have to play a role, and that's a big part of it. As soon as what'd you say? Ownership. Yeah, because as soon as you get diagnosed with the disease and there's nothing you can do about it, it takes the personal responsibility away, it takes the ownership away. It's like you're a victim.
Empowerment away.
Well, see, you guys bring up a good point. The medical profession loves to take your power away, and we love to give your power back. That's why we have our classes. That's why we educate. That's why we have the YouTubes. Learn, learn, learn. Don't say, "Hell, do it for me." No, you learn what's up, what's your body made, how it's made, what type of chemistry does it need, and things like that. And then you'll be able to sell your car into Wellville, baby.
And we talked. I just want to go back to this for a second. We talked about the mothers and the children and the change in the eating and all of that. And this is also about educating our kids on how to be healthy and pass it on.
And make it fun.
Exactly. I have a whole Pinterest page that I termed "You're So Fruity," and it's fun ways of making fruit into like dolphins and things like that to do for the little kids. And Robert has said this before. You said a bowl of fruit on a table, and you said a bowl of salad on a table. Which one are the children going to go after? We are naturally drawn to that. Now, because of different things that are going on neurologically and stuff like that, there are those that are sensitive to textures and things like that that you may have to try and encourage a little bit more into that. But introducing your kids, even if you changed nothing else but got rid of the meat, the dairy, and added a ton of fruit in, if you just made some of those changes, but we are stimulating our children with sugar. Everything is sugar. So if a child tastes something that's not completely sweet or totally carbs, which I believe that there's a reason why our kids want all the chips and all this other stuff, because of things that are actually growing within the body. But if you start switching the diet, and remember, I had one mother say, well, he refuses to eat this and he refuses to eat that and he refuses to eat the other thing, so I give him this. Well, what happens if you wouldn't give him that?
He'd have to eventually eat.
Exactly. And you talked about fasting a little bit. I totally believe in fasting, and I believe it is very healthy, and I do not think it would hurt a mother or a pregnant woman at all to a 24-hour fast, a week or every other week or something like that, just to rest the body.
Totally.
You know where we come from, mothers use sugar water for babies. sugar water. I mean, it's amazing the unawareness that this planet holds, and we have to hold our those medical professions and things like that accountable for that. Dietitians, American Dietetics Association, what an ignorant group of people. And it's the problem. They've been dictating school lunches, hospital lunches, and it's absurd. It has foul of chemistry, foul of how the body's made, and it's just ridiculous. People go to hospitals to get well, not to get sicker. And this is why Consumer Reports on the front page about 2 years ago had protect yourself from your hospital stay. 500,000 people to 1 million people die every year in the hospital. You got to be careful. You got to learn chemistry and learn how everything works, and it's not difficult. We're not asking you to learn, you know, two sides, two sides, 1, 2. Babies can learn that. Babies can learn that.
Again, you just brought up the point of school lunches and stuff. Over in China, it is part of their educational system for them to grow their own food.
Wow.
They are teaching the kids to grow and to cultivate their own food.
Those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Homeschool mothers. I homeschooled for a couple years. Buy these, they're called living towers. They're hydroponics, and allow the kids to see the growth process of the fruits and picking their own strawberries and eating them right from that plant is amazing, not only for the body but the learning experience alone.
For sure.
In that, I mean, there's just so much we could do with our kids, but the problem is time is speeding up. We are getting so much quicker and or busier and busier and busier that as parents we think we don't have the time for this. But you have brought this soul into this world, and it is our job to educate.
Yes, responsibility.
And to teach, and to pass on a baton that's going to increase their health rather than decrease and steal it and take that away.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, I have a couple of just kind of tough situations I was just going to maybe ask you about, but I just want to get back to this concept of disease. The Lord gave me a revelation on this. I just thought I would share it because it was really cool. But you know, if you think about how we're designed, and we're designed in the image of God, and so our bodies are holy. It's our holy temple. This is a holy vessel. And I love the fact that we're created in such a way that we do things to the body that are abnormal to God's creation and design, or unholy things go in the body. We have reactions. We have symptoms. You know, when you, like you said, if you ignore chemistry of how God created the earth, God wants the body to stay holy. And so therefore, when you abuse chemistry and put the wrong things in the body, or put mercury in the body, you have reactions and you have symptoms, because God's desire is that we heal ourselves and we cleanse ourselves, because we're designed to have a connection to God. And it's hard to do that when we have all these impurities and this sickness and this disease in our body. So I just am in awe of like how God designed our bodies. You know,
you can't even remember we were talking about that little white little Tootsie Roll going right across that rope in the sub-nano levels. You just can't even fathom that, you know.
Yeah. So I got just a couple of situations, because I know you've been through so many challenging situations, and I have a guy, I do some urine testing, and he tested 40 times the toxic level of black mold. It was like 140 times the toxic level of aflatoxin. He's lost so much weight. He's like 80 some pounds. He's withering away. The other challenge is mucus. He's got so much mucus that he's had to get a trach tube, and they're trying to, now we know mucus needs to cleanse out of the body, but they're trying to get rid of mucus and get the mucus down, suppress it just so he can breathe through his trach tube, because if he gets too much mucus, he has to pull the junk out of his trach tube.
Absolutely.
So like, where do you start with somebody who's at that, and he's being fed through a bag, so where do you start with somebody that's at that level of chronic illness?
Well, first of all, he's got a feeding tube, right? All right, so everything you use up the feeding tube. That's not a big deal, to be honest with you. You juice your foods, which is going to be your fruits. He's naturally going to get a ton of this mucus out, and
so juice it.
Suction.
Sorry, juice it as opposed to blend it, because the blending could be too hard on him. The fiber and
It
stuff,
would also
or
be too thick to go
Too
through the
thick.
feeding.
Okay,
After
okay.
a while, exactly, and you'll thicken up your tube and have to have it replaced quicker. But herbs and juices right up that tube. Doesn't matter.
right?
You know.
Plus mono, when you're
Grape
juicing,
juice?
like grapes.
Okay.
That number one, it's easier on the tube, but number two, it's the high, I mean, you need to get in there and you need to be cleaning this stuff up.
Right.
Don't be afraid to go in there and suction that junk out. It needs to come out.
Right.
It may not be a fun experience for either the caregiver or the person that it's having done, but you suppress that and you're only going to cause that with the acids to harden over time and become even more of an issue.
Right.
Okay, so let's tie this to what we've been talking about, the lymphatic system, all right? So the lymphatic system includes the mucosa that lines every part of your body. Whenever you consume certain proteins, it irritates. These are acids, and they irritate this mucosa. So chemistry is foreign to the body. It could be something that you like to eat, but foreign chemistry to the body. The body doesn't want it. You'll get a mucosic response called mucus.
Right.
That mucus, and dairy is as everybody knows, the king of causing mucus in people.
Right.
Well, when you start detoxifying, what comes up? When you get congestion in your sinuses, what is it? It's mucus, but it is all through you. You know, so that mucus is just from him. The mold, that mucus, all that's just taken. That'll come right out with the mucus. The real problem of losing weight is probably not the mold.
Yeah.
It is.
Right.
It is why the mucus, and that is malabsorption.
Yep.
You know,
Okay.
you're talking about the lymphatic system now. If he has copious amounts of mucus like that, then his interstitial spaces in his small bowels are probably really thickened and backed up interstitially.
So the
That's
thick
what-
mucus coats everything. You can't
Absolutely.
digest and absorb,
Absolutely.
and that's the weight
It's
loss.
a major obstruction.
Okay. And you know, when the medical community, it's a mystery. It's a mystery why he's losing weight. We don't
No,
understand
no
why he's
mystery.
losing
When you
weight.
lose weight like that, you have malabsorption big time. But it's the same system that he has these copious amounts of mucus with. And so he's going to see it. And shit, this mucus needs to come out his urine, especially his urine. But it also needs to come out his stool. So he needs to see all this mucus coming out of him. Right now, it's this way. But if you get him on a fruit diet and everything, hopefully it'll pull down the other way a little bit.
Eventually.
But also, when you have someone like that, and if you're a quad and paraplegic, you have to have a suction machine.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
you're, because you don't have the power to cough it out.
Right.
Especially ALS
Right.
and Parkinson's.
ALS
Yeah.
the same way, you know.
Yeah. So are there you mentioned like grapes and lemons? Are there certain things that can pull it down out through his bowels as opposed to having it come up through his
Yeah, good question.
chest and his
Yeah, I think
mouth?
only when you do the lymphatic formulas and the kidneys and the herbal side that can be possible. I think because when you start with the hydration, when you start hydrating, all this mucus loosens up. You know, when people try to cough and they feel like they have a plug,
Right.
that's developing under an acidic environment. When you start eating alkaline-rich foods, it starts loosening that up because alkaline foods are the electrolytes. They hydrate, they ionize acids.
Right.
So then you have hydration. All this mucus starts loosening up. Here it comes. Sinus, lungs, bronchi. You know, but it also bowel walls, kidney walls, everywhere. Body's full of mucus.
But one thing we got to always remember, the kidneys are the cleaners. They are the filters that get the junk out. You've got 5 primary ways that your body eliminates. You've got your bowels, you've got the urinary, which is the kidneys, the adrenals. The adrenals are the brains of the kidneys. You've got your lymph, you've got your lungs, and you've got your skin.
Right.
It's gonna, if it needs to come out and the body is saying, I need this out now,
Right.
it's gonna come out one of those 5 ways. Well, normally, like tumors and cysts and things like that, that's the body breaking those down and being eliminated through the kidneys.
Right.
You are not going to, unless it's in the colon, you're not going to, excuse me for being graphic, but poop out a lung tumor.
Right.
You're just not.
Right.
You're not even necessarily, maybe some have, but cough one up. Your body is going to try and break that down and eliminate it. Your kidneys are the filters. And if your kidneys are not filtering, you're backing up in all these ways and you're creating obstructions.
What's
With
your
your
largest
body.
kidney?
Skin.
Skin.
Yeah.
So your skin, you got to sweat, and that's a thyroid issue because if your kidneys aren't filtering, you better sweat your butt off.
Right.
You want to open the doors and eliminate, not hold in. Pharmaceuticals suppress and hold everything in you.
Yes.
Well, that's why you get tumors and everything. Why do you do that? And the other thing is the use of antibiotics. How ridiculous. This is what's compromised most humans.
Right.
Why? Bacteria in your lymph nodes.
Yep.
That's bacteria in your septic tanks. You kill the bacteria in your septic tanks, what would happen to your house?
Yeah.
Same thing. They're killing our bacteria. They're killing the things that we need to help us.
You got all these mamas with babies having ear infection or cough or thrush or the fever at 99, and what do? You go to the doctor, and the first thing they do is put them on an antibiotic.
Yes. Stop it. Why is the symptom happening? We're just going to stop it. No, fix why it's happening, and you'll fix the child or you or whoever.
Exactly.
You know.
So, like, going back to this chronic issue, you could start with the grape juice, and would it be enough? You were mentioning the kidneys. Would it be enough just to start with kidneys and adrenals and the grape juice, and not throw them into too much of a intense detox?
I would do kidneys, adrenals, endocrine glands, parasite M. You want to go after that mold? I would do heavy amounts of parasite M.
Okay.
So I'd follow in that way. What's all his problem?
He's got the trach tube and the weight loss and the lots of mucus.
That's all?
He had pneumonia. He had to go back into the hospital for pneumonia.
He had cancer in his throat, right?
Yeah, he originally had cancer of the throat, and they radiated it, and they said, the quote-unquote, the cancer's gone. You know, but
so here's this guy is in deep trouble. So you have the chemotherapy or radiation blowback, right? So now he has to get his butt moving. So all this mucus coming out, that was the problem in the first place. You know, all the lymph and that's what breaks down the cells.
Right.
So now he's got to get going, or that'll explode in his throat. You don't just radiate and disappear and you're okay. No, you took the wrong road. So now you just burnt also, and I'm sure he has lost his saliva glands and everything else from that. You got to be real careful, because now what's coming is tumors in the neck and everything, because he didn't fix the system that's in trouble. He just killed the cells.
Right.
Well, the cells isn't the problem.
The lymph.
It's the lymph the problem.
Yeah.
It's a fluid that's a problem that blows back on the cell. If you kill the cells, you still haven't fixed the fluid, and there's more cells going, and then the cells you damage with radiation.
Exactly. You kill off these cells, but you damage all these around it.
Right.
So that's why down the road, these are weak and compromised now. They're eventually going to become destroyed and damaged the same way. So it's not a matter of, I've gotten rid of this, and now I'm free of this.
Right.
It is just a matter of time. 3 months down the line, 3 years down the line. I'm sorry, but your cancer's back.
And it's actually creating more work for the lymph that was already down in the first place.
Exactly.
Right.
You didn't clean the sewage plant and get things working properly. You just added all this other junk.
Exactly.
Right.
And see, all those cells that they damage with the radiation, the only way they can be gotten rid of so the body can replace them is through the lymph system. The macrophages are in the lymph nodes that break down these cells, so the lymphocytes have to take these cells to the lymph nodes. Well, when your highway of the lymph is backed up, you can't take cells to the lymph nodes. That highway's backed up. Lymph nodes are swollen all the way backed up to what Marcie said, the kidneys or the skin. So you got to open those doors. If you don't open those doors, you can't get the lymph nodes to drain. You can't go past the lymph nodes into the cells and get to the cells. And so you have destruction, and then it becomes a feeding frenzy.
So on that note, just because, again, we work with a lot of women, and I think one of the biggest, if not the biggest fear with women out there is breast health and breast cancer and the breast lumps. And it's so bad that women get a little lump and they run and they get it biopsied, or even they're getting the mastectomies just when they have no issues.
The genetic gene.
Yeah, that they have the genetic gene, quote unquote, because it's in their family and they're getting their breast removed or they're getting it biopsied. Can you just talk about the dangers and really just the ignorance, as not a bad word, but it's just the reality of the ignorance of our medical community in biopsying those things and the dangers in that?
Well, first of all, I'll just address breast cancer here for a little bit. You find a lump and you go in and they want to do a biopsy. First of all, that lump was there because of an obstruction. It wasn't being eliminated and drained through a lymph node and cleaned the way that it was supposed to. So you're going to go into this, you're going to take tissue that is already obstructed and already inflamed, and you're going to, what that biopsy does is it rips out tissue, it tears it, and it creates more inflammation, more scarring, more obstructions, and then they're putting these markers, so to speak, in. These metal markers in there so that they can find where they were before. And the body is having a response to that in as well.
Foreign material.
Exactly. Instead, get that area. First of all, if you find any type of lump, you need to be doing fruits, melons and berries. You need to be getting the kidneys filtering. You need to be getting the lymphatic moving to get that obstruction gone so that it doesn't. These women who allow these lumps to just continue to grow and grow and grow before they even address it, most people get scared. You go to the doctor and they say something, even the word cancer, not even diagnosed, but the word cancer, and it puts the fear of death into them right away.
And can you just tell them that they have time?
Absolutely.
Tell people, we have time. We have time, right?
Exactly.
Women have time.
If you got a couple of weeks, we can save you. If you got a couple of days, maybe not.
But when these things first start, there's time. There doesn't have to
Always
be
time.
this immediate fear response.
No.
Robert and I were reading, he shared with me an article. If you find out you have cancer, now depending on the stage, and I understand all that, but if you find out that you have cancer, if you do nothing, your chances of living longer than if you did everything that the medical profession had you do is what was it 12 years?
They have statistics.
This was a study, I think, at Harvard maybe even, where they found that the sooner the diagnosis, the sooner the treatment, the sooner the death.
Yep.
Because these studies are showing that, just like Marcie said, if you do nothing, you'll live 12 times longer. If you do nothing.
Wow.
And CBS did a study that took prostate cancer, and they found the same thing. They found if you did not treat that, you would live 12 times longer. The issue of treatment, again, going back to biopsies. When your body forms a tumor, you do not want to punch that. You will explode, and you talk to ladies who have had the biopsies, they were doing fairly well until the biopsy. I have friends in the medical community. I asked a surgeon one time, why do you do that when you open that tumor, when you biopsy that tumor, it then explodes things? And he said, it's my job. Wow. I said, oh, really? So you want to be smart about that. Your body has isolated this acid slurry. This is acid slurry. And your body has isolated that. Leave it alone. It'll open back up when you open up the pathways. Remember, your kidney and your axillary lymph nodes, they're just right here. Right here to the right breast, right there to the left breast. And you've got to open up that matrix and open that up, because the lymph nodes in that area feed the lungs too. And so they used to remove all of them. So what I would get is breast cancer, now lung cancer.
Wow.
Constantly.
I've had a number of clients, one of them, 3 suspicious lymph nodes in the neck. And he went in, they were going to take those 3 and test them.
Wow.
First of all, I'm totally against that, because you've just removed your septic system, first of all. Second of all, he went into surgery, and when they came out, they had removed 54.
So he's done.
So by the time he got to me, his neck was out to here.
Wow.
He never made it.
And that's what's happened with women with the breast removal too.
Absolutely.
The lymph nodes being removed. And
Absolutely. We're going to take a suspicious septic part of your body, the part, not septic, but the part that cleans. We're going to take the part that cleans the body and keeps you healthy.
Right.
Your immune system.
Right.
We're going to remove part of it.
Like taking the tonsils out of these kids and stuff.
Oh,
let's give a good example of this. All right. Let's say that everybody knows what a septic tank is, probably, right? And where you don't have cities, you have to have these tanks.
Right.
And what happens in these tanks is when you poop in the toilet or you pee in the toilet, all that goes in the tanks, right? Then your solids build up and your fluids go out into the drain field and then filtered back down into the aquifers and stuff, right? So then the solids have to be acted upon by bacteria, right? And then any fungus involvement as well. So imagine when your septic tank gets full that you remove it.
Right.
But you keep using and flushing the toilet. Your septic tank's full, we've got to remove it, right? No, you don't remove it, you clean it out. Now, when you look at this, let's say that you had a subdivision and you had 100 homes on one big septic system. And that septic system got backed up and swollen. Instead of fixing it, cleaning it out, you removed it.
Right.
How many homes are going to be affected?
All of them.
So you've got 100 to 1,000 of cells designed for one lymph node. A lymph node is a septic tank. It has bacteria in it, and it has one more thing in it: macrophages to break down cells that have been damaged. Blood doesn't do that. The lymph nodes do that. You remove that, And you've now, those cells on the other side of that have no way to get rid of their metabolitic waste.
Yeah.
And now you're going to get lymphedema first, swelling, like Marcie says, and then you're going to start breaking those cells down. And you can just count they're going to be tipped over because the acids just go ahead and destroy the whole cell. You know?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, Robert said, you know, you don't want to go in and punch that you know, nodule or that
lymph
lump
node
or even
Jeez.
the lymph node. And if you want to test this theory out, go find yourself this big, muscly soldier and just walk up to him and slap him or punch him and see if you don't get blowback.
Yeah, well said. I love what you said, I don't know, yesterday or the day before, but you said a tumor, as it grew, is the same way that it will be removed or reduced or taken away. So again, if we trust in God and we trust in design and we trust that like that's actually a sign or a symptom of a problem, which we know is a backed up sewer system, why would we not think we couldn't clean it out and have it reduce and go away?
Absolutely.
Like I give people the example all the time of God has a to-do list. He loves our bodies, he loves our temples, there's a to-do list, and that tumor's on the to-do list. But have you ever had a to-do list and you couldn't get everything done on the list? So he wants to get the tumor removed, but he's so busy digesting all this food and dealing with all this acid waste and all this inflammation in different parts of the body, it can't get to the removal of the tumor. And that's why we have to get extreme sometimes with cleansing and fruits and doing these things. And also overcoming the lie of the medical community that there's nothing you can do.
Exactly.
Which is ingrained in us.
Which is designed to remove your hope. And there is no such thing as no hope. I had a client, or not a client, a friend call me one time and asked me, there was a 7-year-old boy of his friends that was dying and was just asking me to pray for him. And I said, of course I'll pray for him, but do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, the doctors have said he's got about a week to live and that's it. Wow. I am sorry, but first of all, no doctor will ever remove me doing everything possible for my child because of a diagnosis of death.
Yes.
I would do everything until that child has taken his last breath and then even cling to the hope that that breath can be given back, if necessary, if it were my child, to just give into this. My very first case that I lost, we were winning. His cancer numbers were coming down. The tumor was shrinking.
This was a kid?
This was a man, an older man.
Okay.
He was winning, but his doctor sat him down. I think it was 3 months in to our working on this. His doctor sat him down and he said, "You have 3 weeks to live."
Wow.
Stole his fight.
Wow.
Stole his belief. And guess what happened? In 3.5 weeks, he was gone.
Wow.
But you know, I blame also unconsciousness for that. If you sit there and let a physician, even a naturopathic physician, tell you crap like that and you buy into that, then that's where you're weak. You don't have a lot of awareness. And so you want to take time and spend some time alone with yourself and start loving yourself and understand that you're driving your own car. You need to understand as much as you can. And when you start opening up to higher levels of consciousness, get rid of all this thinking and accepting these negative things, the answers will make themselves known to you. You guys are working real hard to inform and bring this awareness out to this public.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. And once you understand the great lymphatic system, your answers are there.
Amen.
And you understand the two sides of chemistry. You can put this together like more than any physician on the planet. Our guys on the YouTube are curing more people than medical doctors ever dreamed of. Medical doctors can't even cure high blood pressure. Our children can do that with their eyes closed on YouTube.
It's true.
That's how bad it is.
It's
and
true.
so you have to be careful when you run up against something like that where they're telling you your journey.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's discernment. You have to have discernment, and you have to be strong in what you know.
Right.
And not compromise your belief system.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is why we're educating, and leave yourself open to grow. You know, your belief systems bind you and chain you to those belief systems. Get rid of them. Start seeing that there is no belief systems in life. Life is a breathing, ongoing event, and you're part of that at one level. You know, you got a body in there.
So I have just one other difficult situation, because you talked about, you know, how a lot of people with chronic illness, they can do the same basic things and get better in multiple situations. But one situation I see a lot is the inflamed bowel disease, the colitis and the Crohn's and those kind of things. And you mentioned how like the GI broom could even be a little irritating, and you might not do a lot of heavy lymph formulas in that situation. Like, where would you start somebody with this fire, colitis? You mentioned prednisone can be a challenge. You know, they're on prednisone to reduce the inflammation in fear of getting off the prednisone to have a flare-up that throws them right back into the emergency room. So where do you kind of start with those inflamed bowel conditions?
Well, the big issue about steroids is pharmaceutical steroids that are suppressive. And anyone out there that is young that's had psoriasis or eczema or whatever learned about steroid use, that steroids makes things look like they disappear only to have the blowback. So they're suppressive in nature. So that's the first thing you have to understand. So when you start on a program like this, it's anti-inflammatory. In other words, when you look at this, all a steroid is at that level is an antacid. That's all a steroid is all these chemistries are either acids or antacids.
Right.
An antacid is an alkaline chemistry. So let's say you initiated hydrochloric acid, but you couldn't neutralize it well, so you just ate calcium. You could do anything alkaline will neutralize an acid, because acid just steals the electrons out of the electrolytes. So it's just that movement back and forth between these two things. And this is why you get into these higher levels of alkalinity and energizing and things like this. What else was that?
So where do you start them with the colitis?
This. Okay.
Yeah.
So
the stomach tea.
You got to realize that you have one system that is always at the heart of every man's suffering. So how does all these diseases have one universal connection? Acids.
Acids. Right.
It's itises. It's all acidosis. And so you have to get on the alkaline side. So you would start with teas that are soothing and that are strong against acids. So slippery elm marshmallow teas. We have a stomach tea, highly antacids.
Right.
You would get rid of the acid-forming foods in your diet for sure, or you're going to never get over this.
Right.
But the problem isn't on the wall. You can clean that off. The problem's coming from within the wall.
Interstitial.
That's your lymph, that interstitial, and that's your lymph system. That's why you can soothe the wall, but you've got to ultimately get your kidneys to filter and get this moving through the lymph nodes and out, or you're going to burn the bowel up. Ulcerative colitis, where you know, like the colon we showed you, that the whole kid had his colon removed.
Right.
These are all, that's what acids do. It destroys. That's what it's for. You know, rip things apart and get to the atomic structure again.
So in a critical situation, and let's say they're on the prednisone or these steroids, I mean, is it enough to start with just the fruit diet, which, you know, that's cooling the acid, the stomach formula, the stomach tea,
the stomach and bowel formulas,
like a 0 or a 1,
0 or a 1.
Okay.
That's real soothing to the bowel wall. We're also after the kidneys, the adrenals, because the adrenals is where you get your steroids. And so when you have these conditions, you have weak adrenal glands and no steroids.
Right.
So we build up your adrenal glands, we build up your natural steroids. We're feeding you acids. We're getting the kidneys to filter to move that lymph out of that stagnation out of there.
Right.
Stagnation requires hydration, right? And hydration only comes in alkaline forming foods.
Right.
Electrolyte rich foods.
Right.
And then you begin to hydrate, loosen up. Hydration loosens, makes things fluid. Acids lock, agglomulate, and harden.
Right.
Plus, you're going back to the fact that they are supplying them with steroids, which, if you do that, is going to actually take the organ that supplies that steroid naturally down.
The adrenals are deteriorating, atrophying, weakening.
Exactly.
Right.
So your adrenals are part of the weak adrenals are part of the situation in the first place. They're coming along and giving you steroids that are going to take those adrenals down even more, which is going to perpetuate the problem.
Exactly, and have a major blowback. So you titrate. Once you get things going, you start titrating off your prednisones. You come off slowly, go half the dosage, and then in a week or two, go half of that, or come up. Because you're backing that up with tons of antacids. So you're not just saying come off of it, you're backing that up with chemistry. Steroid type chemistry, but nature steroid type chemistry. The proper
And it
way.
is important to titrate.
Right.
Very much.
Especially with
steroid.
prednisone and things like that.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
If it's long term.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just for clarity, so that everyone understands, like this is the fallacy of the medical system and how people get hooked on these drugs, is because they're designed to suppress, and so as they're suppressing and the system's getting weaker, you need more drugs, more higher dosages of the same drugs, and you're on these drugs long-term or life, and that's why they believe that, because through suppressing symptoms, you're continuing weakening the vitality of the individual, which keeps them on drugs long-term. The doctors might be ignorant, unaware of it. I think there's higher powers that be that are tied into deception and the money side of this. We know that. But in our side, we're building the body, we're strengthening the body, we're pulling the people out of this situation. And what I love to say is the medical system will put you in bondage, but God desires that we'd have freedom, and they don't like that.
Well, look at the difference. I'll tell you the difference in one way of looking in that way is one is academically intellectualism. The other one is consciousness or awareness. If you look at how creation is made, the mind comes out of awareness or out of consciousness. When you use your mind to try to understand something, you're using an instrument that is a conditioned instrument. The mind is conditioned from past experiences. And so you read books of people with past experiences. Look at where man is in his healing art today. It is horrible. Man's dying all over the place. So when you go back to the books to read someone that's not in the books, because the answer isn't there, you don't see it happening. You bring the answer out when you move away from your thoughts, away from academics, into where the mind comes from. And that is consciousness. And it's hard for people to understand that your awareness as a conscious being, not the mind, but as a conscious being, is where all the answers are. And the mind is only an instrument to use to navigate in creation. So we play heavily on academics here, but in doing that, we simply build narcissism and almost ignorance, because we're using past experiences to build the mind, when we don't have that in the consciousness here. You have to have someone that is in the consciousness bring it out, which is what we did for.
And we're a product of our environment, you know, and that's how doctors are taught in schools, and we know the whole history of the Rockefellers, and we don't need to get into all of that.
That's the difference about that, you know, where the, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that one.
Well, I was talking with a lady the other day. She started out on one medication, and she is now on 24.
Wow.
The first one didn't work, but instead of taking her off the first one and having her try another, they left her on that and put her on another one. Then the side effects, they had to give her a medication to cover those side effects. And then another one, another medication to cover those side effects.
Yeah.
And pretty soon they're stacked. Where are we? We need to, as humans, we need to start getting more. Doctors are not God. When you go to a doctor and they say do this, most of us just follow like sheep.
Blindly, yeah.
Blindly. Where is our common sense of saying, wait a minute, why did you put me on 4 different blood pressure medications when these 3 didn't work? Now I'm on 4.
Yeah.
When are we going to stand up and start saying this isn't, and many of us are.
Right.
When this doesn't make sense. I mean, there is common sense. We are given common sense.
Yeah.
And we need to start taking that authority back. And that.
Also, when we ask what causes high blood pressure, the answers is idiocy. Or we don't know.
They just say stress most of the time.
That's a good one. Autoimmune is another good one. I love that drawer too. Oh, it's an autoimmune. It's diabetes. Oh, it's an autoimmune.
Now everything's autoimmune.
And we can give chemotherapy for it.
Right. Oh, I know. They do.
Oh, they do.
MTHFR
MTHFR gene, yeah.
Yeah, the one that you can't detox.
Yeah, nothing you can do about it.
I am so sorry, but...
Yeah, not true. Hey, did you have any other questions, Mike? I wanted to make sure if you had anything on your heart.
Wondering if you could talk about sugars. So I think people get a little freaked out about that with the fruit and understanding the role of sugars and why fruit's okay, and breaking that down, and maybe even tie in a little bit of the bacteria, fungus. You know, people want to go after that and think that's the issue, but it's really the environment. But how the proper stuff can clean that out.
You know what's sad here is that we have so much misinformation, and you brought up the World Bank and that sort of thing. So there is some conscious dissemination of misinformation. And one of them is just what you said, sugars. If you take a look at mother's milk that we were showing you at the school, where you have roughly, let's call it 7% carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are carbon chain constituents. Carbon is the universal atom of energy. So we burn carbon for energy. You put carbon in your car, gasoline to burn for energy. You put carbon in your body, carbohydrates, which is your fruits, your berries, your melons, and your salads. You burn that for energy, right? So these are simple sugars. When you get into your fruits and your berries and your melons and your vegetables, you have fructose for the fruits, basically, and you have glucose, a simple sugar for your vegetables. These are simple sugars. These are essential to life. When you look at complexing chemistry, now you look at your grains. Your grains are not living foods, right? We produce them. So what they are starch. It is complex sugar. So when you start complexing chemistry, it is much more difficult for your body to break down. So a complex sugar like a di or polysaccharide is actually no different than a complex amino acid structure called a protein. Both a protein and a starch are very difficult for the human body to break down, and both give the body a blowback in chemistry called acids. You know, everything breaks down to acids, but the more complex the chemistry, the more acids. And you have more of a blowback because you have more cycles to break them down in. So complex chemistry is what you try to avoid in the human body. Simple sugars are mandatory. When you look at the mother's milk, the protein, as we've said, is below 1%, where your carbohydrates is 7%. That's a huge difference. So when you think your food should be high in protein, that's contraindicative to nature and what nature's telling us, right? And the same thing is true with lipids. Lipids, fats are half between, almost half the carbohydrate, about 3%, but a lot more than the proteins.
And just to drive home your point, if that's the constituents of mother's milk, and a baby's growing and he's growing rapidly, what's growing the baby? Because our assumption is that without protein we can't grow and we can't be strong, and there's clearly a myth there. There's a myth there.
There is a myth there, a big myth there. And those animals that increase the protein, you have to be careful. Here's a good example. If you feed your dog high protein diets, they'll have shorter lives, they have arthritis, they you know.
The same diseases we get.
Same things.
Can I piggyback on Mike's question is, you know, we see women who have UTIs and yeast infections, and they eat a piece of fruit and it's an immediate flare-up and they're scared of the fruit. I mean, do they just need to eat different fruits? Do they need to pair it with something that helps clear the infection out?
I would. I'd pair it with paracetam or something. Foods are energetically active. They're astringent. So when you start going on, you can feel it. If you have a UTI, you can feel the fruit because it's astringent. Whenever you're in pain and you have astringents, you can feel those a little bit. And so sometimes when you go on these programs and you're loaded with systemic pain, like in fibromyalgia and lupus, you can feel it a little bit. But you got to go through some doorways or you'll never get well.
Right. So
you look at I just want to touch on that real quick. Your goal when you have UTIs and things like that is to pull the bacteria out, not push it back in so that it can play around and come out at another time. So when you go to when a woman, I'm going to talk to the women here. When you go to the store, look at what your cleaners. Essence of lemon, essence of orange. You don't see essence of steak, kale, or broccoli. Now, what are your buffers? Those are your avocado oils, your oils and things like that. They buffer, they shine. Your body, when it is over acidic, is going to try and buffer. And that's going to create the cholesterol. That's going to pull the calcium. Women who are wrinkling and getting older faster than what they should, they're very, very acidic, and the body is, number one, dehydrated because of this, but number two, it's pulling all that calcium from the blood, the bones, the hair, the nails, the teeth.
Right.
And so you don't want to buffer, you want to clean. You want to pull out.
Now, we talk about eating fruits, but you know, clearly if somebody's cleansing or a woman's in this situation, you want her eating, like you said, the berries and the astringents. you don't want her just eating bananas and dates and dried fruit.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the drier the fruit, stuff like that, and bananas, that's more of the meat of the subject. You want more watery.
Right.
If you're going to...
High water content, hydration.
Exactly, exactly. Those are much better anyway.
Okay, great.
And also
watermelon.
get the kidneys filtering.
Think about watermelon.
Oh, it's summer's coming up, watermelon.
It'll take ketosis right out of the body, too. Watermelons are really good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I tell you, right on point here and right on the subject matter. And I don't care how bad you are, the message is you can rebuild your physical body and get yourself back. If you're not walking or talking, don't lose faith. Just because one modality has nothing to do with regeneration, has nothing to do about health, the medical community is exclusively about diseases and pharmaceuticals. That's their field. You've got good surgeons out there, which is vital.
Yes.
The medical community should be reduced to surgery and emergency rooms.
Amen.
When you get into the healthcare, that's naturopathic.
Right.
But naturopathic now has become more medical and has lost its ability to heal.
Yeah.
And this is why we're teaching all of you guys to get out there and heal everybody up. Because I don't care how advanced you are, you can make it and get well again.
Amen.
Yeah,
Amen.
absolutely.
Man, I think that drove it home. I think that could be a good ending. God bless you. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Dr. Morse, Marcie, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for everything you guys are doing. We love you.
Fun stuff, isn't it?
All right. It is fun. It is exciting.
All right, we'll go on and get a bunch cured up.
Amen.